Well, I said, trying to mull it over, give him the best details. Quite frankly, it's really hard to pin down. Their abilities are fairly sporadic, usually bouncing back and forth between casting those spells, mostly that seem long range, but for whatever reason they tend to use them at a closer range. And then there are those blades of theirs, which seem to be their primary means of attack, whether it's just to conserve energy or because they're damn good at it. I couldn't tell you. I'm not really certain of how to categorize magic, but as of so far, they've summoned a rain of explosions, a massive beam that sent me flying into a massive crater, of course, one small-scale beam that I seem to be able to brush off fairly easily. They also have been using some sort of binding spells, something that wraps bands of energy around you, keeps you from moving. Unfortunately, they got me with that one twice. The first time wasn't so bad, but the second time was when they pinned me down for that explosive rain I told you about. Other than that, they're damn fast. Apparently, being half vampires pays off, and even beyond that, they seem to have some sort of extra special magical movement. Something that drastically increases their speed, even if only for a short time. Honestly, the longer the fight goes on, the more tricks they seem to pull out of their hat. And I only just got introduced to that gigantic fog monster. But when she called it, it didn't sound like her other magical spells. It sounded like an actual word that I could recognize. The word emerge. Yeah, Victor replied. Sounds like that's her greater familiar. Greater familiars aren't a joke. Only high-level casters are able to summon them. They're essentially exceptionally powerful otherworldly beings that bond themselves to a caster through a contract, an agreement between the two. And if you're wanting a name for that wolf that turned itself into fog, well, that's a specific type of spirit beast that resides within the bestial realm. They're not a joke at all. Even the small ones are lethal. But that one is freaking massive, meaning it's probably an ancient. Most likely several hundred years old, minimum. Has the other one used a greater familiar yet? No, I replied. Just the one in the business dress. She seems to be the more serious of the two, and for whatever reason, she seems to dislike me quite a bit. I don't know why, but it almost seems like the pink one favors me for some reason. She even gave me her phone number. She still said she was going to have to kick my ass, but she said she'd let me live, saying she wanted to talk to me later on. I also mentioned something about a glow, but I don't really understand it. Well, you probably won't, Victor replied. It's well known that the Wallengard family have been using magic for a long time. There are even rumors that they have bloodline magical abilities, natural powers that exist within the Wallengard family. However, it's fairly secretive and no one really knows what it is. But rumor has it that they have more than one, which is strange on top of being strange. A magical family having even one bloodline magical ability is a strange thing. It gives them extra power and influence in the magical world. But the rumor has it they have at least two. If I were to guess, this glow they were describing probably has something to do with that. Their natural magical abilities. Probably something linked to their perception. An ability to measure their opponents in a way that other magic casters just can't do, Victor said, taking out a cigarette and lighting it. Well, if that's all the information you got, I think it's about time we get this rodeo underway. There may be two enemies, but the tactics we talked about should work all the same. We'll have to divide and conquer, split up and each take one, even the odds, keep them from working together. and it'll also limit our ability to work together. But it's better than trying a 2-on-1 fight, especially considering that they've probably had a lot more time and experience working together. So it's best to limit their ability to do that. And do your best to be on guard. If the one in the pink dress hasn't used her greater familiar yet, there's a good chance you're gonna see it. Greater familiars come in all shapes and sizes. You never know what someone's greater familiar is going to be like. It could be any number of things, and have any number of strange and unorthodox powers. Ugh! Rebecca growled in the distance, looking over at us. Where did you come from? How did you even get in here? You know what? Never mind. It doesn't matter. Just go. You're interrupting me. I was just starting to get to know my knight in shining armor, and then you show up and ruin it. Just leave. We'll come get you when we're ready. We don't need you here, she said, looking fairly angry in Victor's direction. Now, Rebecca, Sylvia said. This actually works to our advantage. Now we can get rid of both of them, without having to hunt the other down. It only makes the task simpler. But Sylvia, I'm finally starting to get a read on the knight's powers. His character, stuff like that, Rebecca replied, looking over frustrated at Sylvia. Rebecca, you really must stop chasing this nonsense idea of yours. It doesn't mean anything, and we have other things to attend to. So, we shall split up and each take one. That seems to be their plan as well, so it will work out just fine. I'll take the knight, and you take the one with the guns. No! Rebecca shouted out. You take the one with the guns. The shiny knight is mine. Rebecca, really? Must you argue with me about this? Sylvia replied, placing her hand on her forehead. I don't know why she's so frustrated. I mean, at this point, it doesn't seem new that she has some sort of interest in me. I just don't really get what it is, or why. Fine, as you wish. You take the knight. Well, I suppose that leaves me with the gun wielder. Quite frankly, I'm surprised you didn't come in here in costume, like your friend over there, Sylvia said, looking over to Victor. Sorry, but costume's not my thing. Well, I have something, but I wouldn't call it a costume. But don't you worry. You'll see in time, Victor said, taking a drag off of his cigarette, blowing out a thick cloud of smoke. All right. The division seems to work in our advantage. That spirit hound works for the one in the business dress, right? So that means it'll stalk with her. I'm better capable of dealing with it than you are, so that works to our advantage. But stay on guard for the other ones, they're greater familiar. With the power of this one's, I expect that the sister will have an equally powerful one. Now, Victor said, taking one last long drag off of his cigarette, throwing it to the ground and stomping on it. Let's party, he announced. Full possession, Victor called out, as a swirl of that smoky energy began to swirl around his form, beginning to take shape and form on his body. Like there was suddenly an extra layer of ghostly clothing, and right there where he stood, it all formed on top of him like a secondary layer, a spectral black film of smoke forming clothing, a wide cowboy hat, a long jacket, and boots with spurs. All of it seemed to flow in a wind that just wasn't there. I gotta be honest. It looked pretty freaking badass. And as he looked up from stomping out his cigarette, I could still see that ominous glow in his eyes, like from when I was looking at his ghost buddy in the back seat. Let's get this dance started, Victor said, his voice seeming to be an overlap of the voice of that cowboy guy and his own.